Hi, are you recently divorced or you're in the process of a divorce and you're wanting to potentially qualify and purchase a new home? Well, I want to try and cover a few things here today that, might be helpful as you're considering that. And the first thing I'm going to point out is something that's going to be, pretty obvious, which is that your financial picture has now changed. Now, sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse, right? And what I mean by that is, maybe you're going from a two-income household down to a single income household. Perhaps you're going to have to either pay or receive child support or spousal support. But you might also be in a situation where your spouse had a lot of debt and maybe not a great credit score, and so that's not going to, pull you down, if you will. So even though you might have less income, if you have less debt, you still might actually even be in a better situation. So the reality is you just need to understand that your financial picture has definitely changed. And we're going to just, walk you through all of those different things. Secondly, a lot of times people are concerned with, okay, how am I going to come up with the down payment? Well, depending upon your situation, if you currently own a home, and you're either going to sell that home, split the proceeds with your spouse or ex-spouse, we can definitely utilize those funds for the down payment. Oftentimes, however, one of the spouses want to hang on to the property, and as part of that agreement, they agree to take on the mortgage, but they also agree to buy you out, pay your equity. And so those are things that can be also used for the down payment, that equity buyout, if you will. And whether you sell the home or you're doing that equity buyout, we would just paper trail where those funds are coming from. So that's really not a concern. The one thing I do want to point out, however, is if you're in the process of a divorce, it's really important that for the most part, I'm going to say 90% of the time, the divorce needs to be finalized. And the reason is underwriting is going to want to make sure that especially if there is child support or spousal support or anything of that nature involved, and you're the one that's having to pay it, we need to make sure that those numbers have all been finalized and that they're not going to change. So that's really important that be finalized, again, if you're the one that's paying that out. But let's just say, for example, we don't have an issue as far as the loan is concerned. We're able to get you approved, move forward, allow you to close. Well, if you're buying here in Arizona, Arizona is what is referred to as a community property state. If your divorce is not yet finalized, you will need to have your spouse sign a disclaimer deed. Now, sometimes that's not a big issue. Sometimes everything is very amicable. Other times, maybe it's not so friendly and amicable, and so that could become a hurdle where they don't want to sign it, and if they don't want to sign it, that's going to hold up everything for you. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about this. In fact, we just helped a client about 2 months back, and she went through everything, got finalized. She was able to get her buyout from her ex-spouse, use that for the down payment. So the process went extremely smoothly. There wasn't any holdups or anything, waiting for the divorce to be finalized, waiting for her to get her funds, because she already had those in place at the time we started the application or the purchase of her home. So anyway, that's just something to keep in mind when you are in fact in the process and it's maybe not quite finished. So listen, this by no means covers everything, just a small sampling. If you have questions, please call, text, reach out. We're always here to answer your questions. We want to help you in any way that we can through this process, this next step in your life, if you will. So listen, I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please do me a favor, subscribe to our page here. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out anytime. You take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.